And when you're out there without care, I was out of touch. But it wasn't because I didn't know, no. I just know too much. Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? Possibly. I hope that you're having the time of your life. Think twice. That's my only advice. Oh, who do you think you are? Oh, bless your soul. You think you're in control. I think you're crazy. I think you're crazy. I think you're crazy. Just like me. My heroes had the heart, lose their lives out on the land. And all I remember is thinking I want to be like them. Oh, yeah. Ever since I was little, it looked like fun. And it's not coincidence I've come. And I can die when I'm done. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe you're crazy. Maybe we're crazy.
Hello, everybody. It's a beautiful Tuesday morning. Now, I know many of you are out of the vicinity of the greater part of Lusaka. Many of you have left for Livingston and all these beautiful palatial spots. Some of you have taken time out of your very busy schedule on this holiday, on this 4-day, count them, 4 days. It's amazing. On this holiday to be home with your loved ones and your family, and that's great. But Simoson never sleeps, just so you know. I mean, it's like New York. Simoson is like the city of New York. And I know somebody's going to say, "Yo, man, let's compare Simoson in New York way." Eh? What type of nonsense is that one? What I'm trying to tell you is that this place never sleeps. And so here's the thing, guys. I know many of you think that I come here and it doesn't feel like work. And that's when you know you've got a good thing. Is if you can do your vlogging, you can do your work, you can do your business, but it doesn't feel like work, that's a great place to be. It really is. It's a whole lot better than feeling that you have to go somewhere or that you have to do something. I couldn't imagine doing that. I couldn't imagine being in a line of work that I have to do. You know, if you have to do it, then where's the fun in that? I mean, I'll never forget. I forget her name now, but she's a very famous Hollywood actress. Her father gave her some very good advice. Her father said, find something that you love to do and then figure out a way to get paid for it. Ooh, that's good. Boy, that's good. Let me say that again because I think that's important. Find something that you love to do. As you know, as long as it's legal, as long as it's within the circumference of the law. I mean, if you're out there breaking the law, that's no fun. Well, it may be fun for a season, but eventually you get caught out and you get in trouble. But the point is, find something that you love to do. And then, oh, honey, figure out a way to get paid for it. Yeah, you should do that. Well, hey, guys, I wanted to come to you. I didn't plan on doing this podcast today. I didn't. But, you're flicking through the news. You come across topics that interest you, and you feel you've got an opinion. And the great thing about the work that I do is in my office, I've got a camera, lights, and I turn on the thing and boom, I've got a bit of an audience sometimes. And you guys sort of tolerate me and as I give you my opinion. So I didn't plan on doing it today, but I do have 3 topics that I would like to sort of gloss over and sprinkle some SML TV dust on and give you my 2 cents worth, if that's okay with you. Okay. But only if that's okay with you. Not really. But here's the thing. Before we begin, I love to do the shout outs. Okay. Start talking. Now, this is what makes me laugh. People think, guys, I always tell you this, and I'll read this comment in a moment. But before I do, let me make it clear. Any public speaker knows this. Any type of delivery has 3 parts. It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay? It's like a film. A story has a beginning, middle, and an end. It always baffles me when I read comments like this. Start talking. What will make Lungu not to stand? I mean, the heading of this podcast, as you know, is what will happen if Lungu is not on the ballot in 2026. When I switch on my camera, I've got a way of delivering my podcast. I do the intro, I talk a bit, and I get into the topic, but I start with a bit of a background, and then I get into the middle, and then the end. What you guys, uyu nani ni Jones Zulu, arefwa tinja she camera. But that's not how it works. Every story has a beginning, middle, and end. So, Jones, you're just going to have to wait your turn. You're just going to have to sit in line and wait until I get to this story. If you really want to know what my opinion is, you're going to have to wait, honey. I'm not going to rush it for you. Okay? Let's just be clear about that. All right. Somebody says, we are waiting.com. You're starting the story. Can you start the story? Waiting. Can you start the story? Okay. All right. A few shout outs. Somebody's watching us from Cape Town. We appreciate you, Cape Town. Thank you so much. Somebody says, stop wasting time. Well, I'm going to start when I'm good and ready. Okay. Let's just be clear about that. Here it is. Let me read 2 more. 2026, you must contest as... You're so kind. You're very kind. Thank you for saying that. Watching from Johannesburg. Johannesburg, South Africa. We love Johannesburg. Who is that? ICT. Thank you for that. Thank you. A couple of more I want to read because this is my opportunity to sort of connect with a pool, a sample of my audience, a remnant of my audience. You know the word remnant? If you're not a Pentecostal Christian, you won't even know what remnant means. I mean, that's old school Pentecost right there. Looks like, here it is. Somebody says, looks like UCA led by ECL and PF led by Miles Sampa will join hands in 2026. What gives you that impression? Just because Miles took a photograph with ECL, you draw this conclusion? You're painting in broad strokes. As I said in my preamble, well, not my preamble, in the previous podcast, the meeting between Miles and ECL was just that. It was just a meeting. It was just a rendezvous. They didn't discuss any pertinent issues. They didn't discuss anything that would alter the course of their respective political factions. They didn't. All they talked about, they just shot the breeze. I mean, by his own admission, Miles Sampa told us, he said, look, I went to CECL and we just shot the breeze. Do you know what it means to shoot the breeze? It means to just talk about nothing. It just means to hang. It just means to, you know, nikucheza, benzocheza chape. Kuja nikucheza chape. Manya mucheza, ticheza. If you walked into the room and you found ECL and Miles Sampa in the room and you asked them what they were doing, Miles would have turned to you and said, no, ticheza chape. Ticheza chape. We're just chatting. We're just shooting the breeze, mate. All right, let's get into it. Couple of things I want to talk to you about. Before I get to the main topic, let me just very quickly gloss over Lady Naisi. Oh dear. Lady Naisi and her brush with Namibian authorities. Now, as many of you know, many of you call her Prophetess Naisi. Naisi and I have sort of, you know, we've thrown our swords into plowshare. I no longer sort of talk negatively about her because, you know, she's going to do her thing regardless. You know, she's just going to be who she is. And, you know, I can't kick against the goads, as it were. Not gods, goads, the pricks. I can't kick against the pricks. As far as she's concerned, she's doing her thing. So I've pretty much sort of laid off her, but you do know my position on these people that call themselves prophetesses and prophets. And for a long time, I was very vociferous about Lady Naisi's theology and her style of preaching and her content. And I made it very clear to you that I didn't think that there was anything in her way of delivering her message that was Christ-centered. I always felt that it was a materialistic type of gospel that just talked about iPhones and hairstyles and beautiful photo shoots, which there's nothing wrong with that. But what I was saying was, my point was, if that's the focus, if all you're teaching your people is prosperity, and a material accumulation, the accumulation of material wealth, then you're not going to get very far, because that's not the gospel. It's a part of the gospel, but it's not the gospel. And I made that very clear. So anyway, not too long, last night or the day before, we heard that she was in Namibia and she had been arrested because she was speaking to a pool of people that the authorities felt that there was a bit of scamming going on there because it coincided with Namibia's payday, or the you know, how they get their pay, and that they didn't think that she was legally allowed to do what she was doing. Now, let me tell you, to a Pentecostal preacher that doesn't really have a strong foundation, let me tell you what this means when the authorities arrest you. They don't look at it as, oh, I might have broken the law, or maybe I didn't follow procedure. Perhaps I should have done it differently. Perhaps I should have consulted more widely. Wayward, self-centered Pentecostal Christians don't think that way. The way they think is, I'm being persecuted for preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. There are some Christians out there, they blatantly break the law. There you go. That's a BNR thingy. They blatantly break the law, meaning they break the law with impunity, and then they cover it with well, I was just preaching the gospel. I was just preaching the gospel, and I'm being persecuted for preaching the gospel. And because I'm being persecuted for preaching the gospel, I'm fulfilling the word of God. Well, the truth is, if you're breaking the law, if you go into a foreign country and you don't adhere to the laws of that country, then you're not preaching the gospel. You're breaking the law. So my comment on this is, I would only hope that Naisi sort of follows the rules. If there are issues there that she sort of overlooked, glossed over, perhaps in some cases ignored, she needs to pay attention to those things, because you never want to be a preacher or someone that holds the banner of Christ, and you are perceived as a lawbreaker, you're perceived as unreasonably radical, because they're Christians that are I always often say this. There are some Christians that are so heavenly minded that they are no earthly good. Do you know what that means? It means you're so in your mind, everything to you is spiritual, everything is a demon, every ailment. If you break your leg, oh, the devil attacked me. If you woke up in the middle of the night on your way to the bathroom and then you stub your toe, oh, the devil is after me. If you start arguing with your wife about money because you hadn't paid the bills when you're asked, your wife asked you to pay the bills, you turn around and say, oh, the devil's attacking. No, the devil's not attacking you. You just hadn't paid your bills. Okay, so there are some Christians that are so heavenly minded that they are no earthly good. Conversely, there's some Christians that are so earthly minded that they're no heavenly good. You know, they talk Christian, but they're not Christians. Okay, so anyway, my point in saying that is, I would only hope moving forward. And of course, Naisi denies that she was detained or given 24 hours to leave Namibia. Naisi maintains that, no, I was not given 24 hours to leave Namibia, but there was some type of brush with Namibian authorities. My advice to young preachers, young preachers, is follow when you're entering a foreign country. That's not your backyard. Okay? That country is not your grandmother's real estate. You're in a foreign country. You would do good. It would serve you well to follow the rules. Be a law-abiding citizen wherever you go. Don't be unreasonably radical, which is what most of these kids do. Anyway, so Naisi, I hope you're well and just come home safe. And we don't want to hear that you're in trouble. We don't. We just want to know that you're safe and you're fine. Okay, that's what we want, because you belong to us, and we just want you home safe. All right, thought I'd share that with you. Comment or two about that. Let me highlight something on that. Let's see here. Oh, we got somebody here from Nottingham, England. Always love. Oh, thank you so much. You're so great. You're so kind. You're wonderful. All righty. Next. Here it is. Not too few days ago, you remember Chilufya's son, our second Republican president, the late Dr. Frederick Chilufya. One of his sons, who happened to be trained overseas. Chilufya had many children. And for those of you that may not remember, there was a time, and I remember this because, I'm 55 years old, and I keep telling you that I've had the rare privilege of, and I don't say this boastfully, I say this as a matter of fact, okay? Because in Zambia, you say things that, why? You have to contend with that, especially on social media. Everything you say is checked, counter-checked, cross-checked, analyzed, overanalyzed. I often say to you that by virtue of my age, I have been privileged, and I count it a privilege and an honor. I have known every single president since our first president, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda. I knew him very well. I knew him very closely because, my father worked with him. Chilufya, I knew Chilufya not extremely well, but well enough for me to, I had conversations with him. I spoke to him on occasion. Rupia Banda, Mwanawasa, I knew, spoke to him many, many times. Him and his lovely wife, Maureen. After that, Rupia Banda, I knew him fairly well. I knew his sons. Rupia Banda's sons and I went to the same school. I knew them very well. After Rupiah Banda, who was it? It was Sata. Sata, whom I knew extremely well because Sata, before he became president, he used to have an office over there at Farmer's House, and I used to go see him there. I'll never forget the first time I met Michael Sata. I was a young man then, and I was over at St. John's Hospital. This was many years ago. This was many years before he became president. You know, I was at St. John's, and we were standing at the counter, and he turned to me, and the first thing he said to me, he said, "Are you Simon's son?" I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "I know your father. I knew your dad. I knew your father very well." So, you know, we talked and things. And so I would always go to his, and what he told me, he said, you should come by and see me at my office, you know, and I'd go to his office there and we'll talk. And I'll never forget the first time I walked into Vasata's office, there was a huge wooden sculpture of a snake, a cobra. Because, you know, you remember Vasata's nickname was the King Cobra. And there was this figurine, this wooden carved statue or figurine of a king cobra. And I said to him, I said, "Sir, are you not concerned that people might take this the wrong way, that they might think that this is steeped in witchcraft or some type of occult?" He looked at me and said, "Mwewa, this thing was an Indian chap gave me this sculpture. What do you want me to do with it? You want me to throw it away? It was a gift." That's what he said to me. And so I knew him, and of course, after Vasata, Lungu, I didn't know extremely well, but I did speak to him on several occasions, and he was always very nice to me. I'll never forget that. He was always very cordial to me, very kind. You know, and of course, our current president, I've brushed shoulders with him. I've known him for way before he became president. Over the years, we've talked on many occasions, and now he's president. So I said all of that to say this: during Chiluba's presidency, his sons used to cause hell. Makamaka, the late Castro, Chiluba used to have a son by the name of Castro, named after the Cuban revolutionary and president Fidel Castro. The late President Chiluba named one of his sons after Fidel Castro because Chiluba held Castro in high regard. And I'll never forget those days when, this was back when Chiluba was president. The stories that used to dominate the newspapers. Of course, this was before the internet. This was before Facebook. This was before any social media. This was during the time when newspapers, the Post was the king of media in those days. You know, the stories the scandalous stories that would dominate the press were stories that were derived from Chiluba's son's antics. I'll never forget, I was at a restaurant at Manda Hill. This was a short time after Manda Hill was built. And we were at a restaurant, Steers restaurant, and Castro walked in. And in those days, when he would walk in, he would always make his presence known. And of course, in those days, you had the Chiluba's presidential picture was on the wall in the restaurant. And I'll never forget Castro screaming and shouting, bringing attention to himself, saying, "Do you see that man over there?" And everybody turns, you know. And he pointed to the portrait of his father hanging on the wall. He said, "That man over there, that's my father. That's not your daddy. He's my father. He's not your father." Everybody turned and said, "I don't think that's in dispute. You know, I don't think anybody here wants to argue with you as to whether or not he's your dad. We all know this." But I'm telling you this story to tell you that Chiluba's kids, many of them, were a problem. And in those days, people didn't know how to deal with it because Castro would break the law with impunity, and he would never get in trouble for it. If he broke something, or if he caused a ruckus, if he caused a scene, if he just caused trouble, there were bodyguards there waiting and ready to protect him from anyone that would want to retaliate. Now, let me tell you what that did. It created a false sense of superiority for the Chilufya children. Let me say that again. Because they lived in a bubble, this was at a time when they felt that they could do anything they wanted to do because their father was the president of this country. They could break the law anytime they wanted. They could do whatever they want. It gave the children, a false sense of superiority. It gave them a false sense of thinking that they can do whatever the hell they want and there would be no repercussions. It made them feel invincible. It made them feel untouchable. It made them feel that there were no consequences to their actions. Now, at the time in the 90s, they didn't feel the brunt, or they didn't bear the brunt of consequences. But many years later, now in 2024, they are bearing the brunt of that false sense of security. Oh, somebody please tell me I'm preaching. Tell me I'm saying something. Tell me I'm saying, this is a lesson. If at some point in your life you are led to believe that you are untouchable, that you can't face the consequences, there's coming a time when you will face the consequences. Such a time has come for one of Chilufya's sons. Now he's just reduced himself to a thief, a common thief. Someone that had all the privileges in the world. Someone that had the whole world at his feet. Someone that had a buffet of opportunities laid before him. Someone that had a smorgasbord of opportunities, privileges placed in front of him, and was told, choose any path you want. They squandered that opportunity because they didn't have the wherewithal. They didn't have the skill set to maintain and to contain themselves. They were thrust into greatness and they didn't know what to do with it. They had the power of the sun in their hands and they didn't know what to do with it. In the end, they squandered it. Now here it is. We were reading stories of Chilufya's son being accused of being a common burglar, a thief. It's a shame. And I'll tell you what else is a shame. This young man actually carries the former president's name. Frederick Chilufya Jr. That's his name. Can you imagine his father right now? His father looking at this and thinking, I gave him my name, and he's making a mockery out of my name. There's a lesson here, folks. There is, for all of us as parents. Let's be careful what we deposit in our children. Because in the end, even though once we pass away, we really don't pass away. We pass away, but we don't. Because our legacy continues. Okay. Thought I'd share that with you. Someone says, I'm enjoying your program. Thank you so much. Okay, lastly, let's deal with the elephant in the room. What will happen if Lungu is not on the ballot in 2026? Before I answer this question, let me take you back a bit. I know, especially now, people are talking about Trump in America rerunning for president. Well, the stark difference between Donald Trump and ECL is that Donald Trump only ran and served as president for one term. Their constitution, the American Constitution, allows for a person to run for 2 terms. If and when they win a second term, they can serve a second term. Once they serve that second term, it doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how much the American population stands on the highest hill and say, it won't gel. The Constitution is written in stone, 2 terms. Donald Trump has only served 1 term. Constitutionally, he's eligible to run again. So it is wrong for you to compare Trump to Lungu. The difference between Lungu and Donald Trump is very simple, and it's very clear. Edgar Lungu was elected twice, served twice. Constitutionally, you can argue and start talking about the fine points of the law, and you can try to manipulate the wording all you want. But the truth is, ECL was elected twice, he was sworn in twice, and he served twice, an accumulation of 7 years. Now, what I found funny, I'll never forget the time Jean Kapata, when there was this debate of whether or not Lungu should run again. Jean Kapata famously said, no, in fact, this was not his term. It wasn't his term. I heard Jean say that, and I said to myself, well, whose term was it? He was serving vicariously for somebody else? Is that what Lungu was doing? Oh, you're trying to tell me that when Lungu completed Vasata's term, that wasn't him doing that? That was somebody else? Who was that? Was that a ghost, apparition, something? Because according to these guys, Lungu wasn't even in the room when he was serving that term, when he was completing the term for Vasata. It wasn't Lungu. It was some ghost. It was some apparition. It was some fantasy, some fairyland, some fairy tale fairy was doing it. Do you hear how ridiculous it sounds when you think of it in that way? Of course it was Lungu serving that term. He was elected twice, and he served twice. Simple. Now, all of a sudden, we are thrust into a very old conversation. And I keep telling you that the same thing, the Word of God says in Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun. What is has been before, and what will be is now. I keep telling you that Chiluba tried this. Chiluba attempted to convince the Zambian people that a 3rd term was in the offing. The Zambian people looked at Chiluba and said, no, we love you, but we're not going to give you a 3rd term. Who do you think you are? We're not doing it. It was from that point, the Zambian people's minds are set. We don't do 3rd terms. It doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how glossy you are. It doesn't matter how polished you are. It doesn't matter how eloquent you are. It doesn't matter. The Zambian people do not do 3rd terms. Full stop. This attempt by Lungu to manipulate the Constitution and say, I'm eligible to stand for a 3rd term is hogwash, it's nonsense, it's bull roar. That's what it is. So now the question stands. What will happen if Lungu is not on the ballot in 2026? Here's the short answer. Nothing. Nothing. What happened when Chiluba tried to run a 3rd term and he failed? Nothing. Nothing. The sun will still come up. The birds are still going to chirp early in the morning. You guys are still going to drive on Cairo Road on your way to work. You're still going to get a bill on the 30th of the month. Your subscription for Netflix is going to run out and you're going to pay for it. The world is still going to rotate on its axis. Nothing will change. So for those of you that think the world is going to come to an end if and when Lungu is omitted from the electoral process in 2026, don't lie to yourself. Lungu is not the be-all and end-all of the universe. He's just a guy. That's all he is. He's a man that served as president, and we love him. We appreciate him. Step aside. You did your time. Let somebody else take over. When this current president gets to the end of his tenure, guess what's going to happen? Somebody else is going to step in. Zambia is going to continue. Guys, remember, Zambia is bigger than any of us. How dare you suggest? Some of you UPF chaps who think that the world will come to an end if Lungu is not on the ballot. Well, honey, I hate to be the one to have to tell you this, but here it is. When Lungu is omitted from the electoral process in 2026, I guarantee you the world will still rotate on its axis. The answer to this question, what will happen if Lungu is not on the ballot in 2026? Nothing. The world will still continue. We'll be fine. We will be fine. Stick that in your pipe and smoke it. Guys, the quicker you realize that, the better off you'll be. The quicker you grasp that, the quicker you wrap your brain around that idea and that concept, honey, the better off you'll be. You will sleep like a baby knowing that the world will still rotate on its axis when Lungu is removed from the process. Boom! All right. Thought I'd share that with you. Somebody's watching us from Dubai. Thank you. Who's that? Somebody's watching from Windhoek. We appreciate Windhoek. Good morning, Manuel. Good morning. Bless you. You're so kind. Bless your heart. Right. Well, hey, guys, that's what I wanted to share with you. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you. Keep hope alive. And we'll see you again. Bye.